Happy Tuesday. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast. I'm Jay Zawaski here with Greg Boysen. We've got a special guest, a new voice of the Chicago Blackhawks. Rick Ball is here. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. Make sure you do us a favor. Smash that like button on the YouTube page. Make sure you're subscribed there as well. And if you're listening on the podcast later on, that's cool too. Make sure you follow. Make sure you subscribe and do us a favor and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Rick, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Great setup here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's me and Greg built it from the grounds up, bricks and everything, laid it all out, and worked out pretty well.
I thought that sensed you guys had that in you.
Yeah, I definitely give you that.
Be proud of yourselves.
That handyman vibe.
I mean, I did officially build that shelf behind you, Jay. That was me.
Yes, okay, I was going to mention that later. I forgot.
Engineered by IKEA. I see. That's
very exactly.
Yeah, good job.
Well, thanks for being here. We're happy to have you. It's nice to meet you in person, and we've been, listening to your highlights since the news of the hiring has been made. And tell us, what led you here to Chicago? What are the circumstances?
Well, I was in the last year of my deal with Sportsnet, which is the network in Canada, and they had the Flames rights. And they signed a new deal with the Flames, and I expected I was going to sign an extension. They were interested in having me back, and I was interested in staying. But right around that time that was all happening, the Hawks reached out, asked me if I'd be interested in coming to Chicago, and it was extremely appealing. I love the city of Chicago. It's been my favorite stop on the NHL circuit since I've been calling games in the National Hockey. In fact, one of the first games I ever did in the NHL in the year 2000, believe it or not, way back when, was in Chicago, and I immediately fell in love with the arena and the city. The Hawks weren't very good back then. It was when I was in Vancouver, but it was a great experience, and I've been here a lot. So I've talked about it before, but the prospect of calling Connor Bedard's career with an original 6 team in a major world city, and also working with Darren Pang is a huge factor as well. So you put those things together and many other appealing factors for me. And professionally, it was a no-brainer. Toughest part was going to be leaving Calgary because I really love it there. I've been there for 10 years. It's a terrific city, beautiful place, great fan base. The Flames are fantastic to work with. So that was really the only negative. Everything else was nothing but thrilling to me, and I can't wait to get started. So once it kind of all came together, which happened very quickly, I was fully on board and ready to go.
So you get reached out to by, I assume, Jamie Faulkner, Danny Wirtz reached out and said, "Hey, it's always interesting to see how these things get done because, Chris Foster's was here, was learning on the job, he was improving, and all of a sudden, boom, the opportunity for the Hawks to improve the booth pops up, and they hire you. And I think fans like to see that because it indicates not only are they going to do it on the ice, but off the ice too."
Well, my feeling, and so I had a call with Jamie I think it was on a Friday, and then I was in Chicago on Tuesday meeting with Jamie and Danny Wirtz, and they want to be the best show in the league. And my primary objective, in fact, is probably objectives 1 through 100 when I go on the air, is to try and do the best show I can. I think it's the most important thing. You owe it to the fans to give them the best show you can possibly do. So we were definitely synced up in terms of philosophy, and and having Darren Pang as my analyst only makes it that much easier. And I think I mentioned this the other day at United Center when I talked to some of the media. It's like being a defenseman. When your partner is good and reliable, it makes your job that much easier. So, there's going to be an adjustment period for the fans. I'm a new guy. I hope they like what we bring to the table, and I'm going to do my damnedest to make it a terrific product right out of the chute.
Well, this franchise, this historic franchise has had some of the greats of all time in that chair. Jay and I, we grew up listening to the great Pat Foley, and a lot of people did. But before him, my dad used to tell me stories about Lloyd Pettit, who was the Hawks guy before, and how the kind of, you attach all those great moments that you lived through to the guy calling it. Now you get to be the next in that seat, and we have this whole influx of young fans now because of Connor Bedard. Does that get you excited to be like, I can be the guy that calls all these great moments that this team is building towards?
100%. I mean, for all the factors I mentioned, very appealing. And on top of that, a chance to hop on board with a young superstar. I mean, it's hard to believe he's, is he still 18? Has he even turned 19 years old yet?
Not till July.
He's got so many years ahead of him. And, from my understanding, the national games when the Hawks were on national TV were some of the highest rated shows that ESPN and TNT carried last year on a team that, was near the bottom of the standings, right? Yes. So it just goes to show you how much interest there is in Connor Bedard specifically. And, he's an amazing piece. And the idea of getting to call his work on the ice for the next, hopefully long period of time is very, very appealing because, you think about all those highlights of other great players over the years and the guy in the booth yelling into the microphone while Wayne Gretzky or Mario Lemieux were doing something fantastic is a part of that. And that to me is a very appealing prospect stepping into the role here in Chicago.
Well, you mentioned wanting to do the best show possible. And as again, watching your highlights, one thing I noticed about you is you were right on top of the call. And when a great moment happens, like a big goal, you kind of let the moment breathe a little bit. You give it some space, to hear the crowd celebrating, to hear the horn blowing, and to kind of capture all the excitement. Then you get back to describing what was happening. What's your, if you have a general philosophy on how a game should be called, on what a play-by-play guy's job is, how would you describe that?
Yeah, my basic philosophy would be the game is the most important thing, right? So I'm there to add to it. And if it's a great game, it speaks for itself. Now, you do your heavy lifting as a broadcaster where the game isn't so good, right? That's when you really have to earn your dollars. But, either way, what's going on the ice is the most important thing. And it's really a feel thing, and it only comes through reps. And part of that is, there was a goal that Johnny Gaudreau scored in Game 7 of overtime against Dallas a couple of years ago at home in the playoff. You got a Game 7 overtime winner on home ice. And everybody goes, that was a great call. I go, well, it was pretty simple. I called the goal, but the crowd I thought the roof was going to blow off the place, right? And plus they had 10,000 people outside the rink in an outdoor party. And so we cut to that shot and people are throwing it looked like the Waste Management Open, when somebody gets a hole-in-one. There are water bottles and beer flying everywhere. The crowd inside's going crazy. The team's jumping up and down. The camera's literally shaking because it was so loud. I thought, what can I say that's going to top this, right? So I just shut up for 10 seconds or so, and that's just experience. I thought I can't, I could yell over top all this stuff, but I can't top that. And so that's kind of my approach. It's more of an old school thing. I mentioned to somebody recently, one of the guys that I really grew up kind of idolizing as a broadcaster is Bob Cole, who just passed away recently. Yeah. He was the longtime Hockey Night in Canada guy. Just had an amazing feel for the game, and an ability to rise and fall with the play on the ice, but also understood his philosophy was the game is the show. And so I probably adopted some of that from him. And, you formulate your own style over the years, but he was certainly an influence.
We only got to see the Blackhawks 3 times last year, when they played the Flames. But yesterday you were in town. Very busy day for the Hawks. Definitely boosting their roster. What do you think of what we got to expect come this October?
Yeah, I was hoping to have a chat with Kyle Davidson yesterday. I thought, well, he might be a little busy. And he was really busy.
So, apparently, yes.
Never had a chance. But that's, listen, they had a ton of cap space, right? And I think they only had 4 defensemen under the Hawks, only had 4 defensemen under contract. So I was not surprised at all that the team did a bunch of shopping and added a ton of experience, right? I think 7 cups amongst the guys that they signed. Like Martinez has 3. Maroon has 3. And Teuvo won when he was here.
Teuvo,
right?
yeah, Teuvo has one.
Yep. So there's 7 cups. So they brought a lot of experience in, some championship pedigree, on a team that's young. That's, I think, exactly what they had to do. They filled out their blue line a little more as well. So, good on them. And add a little scoring punch. Like I think Bertuzzi will add a little offensively, and getting Taylor Hall back for the whole year is going to help in that department as well. So my feeling is, it's funny. The first year I went to Calgary, they were in a very similar situation. They hadn't been particularly good, but were rebuilding. And I said then, I think the Flames might be better faster than people think they are going to be. And I have the same feeling here. I mean, you've got a superstar at center ice. They've added some depth on defense, the 2 key positions in terms of skaters. I think they're doing it the right way.
Well, speaking of depth on defense, you got to call TJ Brodie for a number of years in Calgary. I know it's been a little bit removed from Calgary, but how do you describe his game, and what can Hawks fans look forward to there?
Yeah, really smooth skater. Good at making that first pass out of the zone. like very silky smooth guy in terms of carrying the puck. You know, yeah, he's a little older now than when he was with the Flames, and I think a chance here to come here and maybe, you know, he's going to provide some experience, but at the same time, some of the youth I think might help him out as well and get his game going back in the right direction. But I'm a big fan of TJ Brodie, and on top of that, a terrific guy.
That's
like just a really good person. I met him, in fact, way prior to him playing with the Flames when he was still with the Flames AHL team in Abbotsford at the golf tournament. We just happened to be paired up on one of the five-sims playing in a fundraiser, and I thought, boy, what a nice young man. So here we are all these years later, and he's now a grizzly old veteran in the National Hockey League and a Chicago Blackhawk.
Well, there certainly seems to be a theme to the guys that the Hawks are bringing in, and it started last year with Nick Felino, with just the leadership and the good citizen and the guys that want to be here. But it's great to hear that out of Brodie, and you got to, you know, with Maroon and Martinez, like there's just, this locker room is going to be very different than it was last year. And I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, for sure. And you can't, like I said, you know, the youth is there for sure. But now you've added a lot of experience in guys who've won. That's definitely a positive attribute for a growing young team to have and just to be around, right? How to, you know, what do winners, how do they carry themselves, and all you know, those intangibles they talk about and good in the room. It's, you know, they're cliches, but cliches are cliches for a reason because they're usually true, right? So they've added a lot of that with what they did yesterday in free agency, and I think it'll make the team that much better.
Well, you mentioned that Johnny Gaudreau overtime goal. Has there been one call that you've gotten to make? You've done a lot of big, you know, playoff games, stuff like that through your career. Is there one call that like you're the most proud of, or you think is your best, or just a moment like where you couldn't believe, you were like, oh my God, this is really happening?
Yeah, that was probably it, just because it was a home ice Game 7 overtime winner. I haven't had the chance to call a Stanley Cup final yet. Hopefully it happens one day. But I can't imagine anything more exciting than a playoff series finishing on home ice with an OT winner. So that was right there. There have been a couple of regular season games I've really enjoyed just because of how they were played. There was one in particular 2 years ago against the Rangers. It was right out of the break. It was old school hockey. There were big hits, fights. Trouba was doing his thing. Flames were pushing back. Game went to overtime. I think there were 10 goals. It had a bit of everything. MSG. So, you know, a game that really, you know, it's between the two conferences. So it wasn't a big impact game in terms of standings or anything, but it just had all the elements that fans love about this sport. And the Flames played a couple of games over the previous few seasons against the Nashville Predators in Nashville that had a similar dynamic. One sticks out in my mind specifically, was near the end of the year, was the same season that they beat Dallas in the playoffs. It looked like they were going to play Nashville in the first round. So this was like 3 or 4 games left in the season. They're playing in Nashville, potential matchup. And it was like a playoff game. And it had Lucic was doing his thing. He hit Matt Duchene so hard. He literally, it looked like a cartoon. He did a backflip. His helmet popped straight up in the air. It was like something you would have saw in a NHL video game from the mid-90s. It looked so ridiculous. In fact, I think Lucic had a T-shirt made of the photo with the helmet popped straight up.
That sounds right.
And then Matthew Tkachuk scored with a 1/10 of a second left to tie the game. You literally can't score any later and have it still count. And the Flames wound up winning in overtime. And UC Saros got hurt in that game. And David Riddick had to finish out the season and wound up playing for them in the playoffs. And they lost out the season because Saros was hurt, and the Flames wound up playing Dallas instead of Nashville. Wow. And Nashville got steamrolled by the eventual Cup winners, Colorado, that year. So it's funny, like, again, like a game that was a regular season game that you guys wouldn't even remember, but it sticks out to me just because of all the drama that happened during the 60 minutes.
The moments, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we saw this Stanley Cup final, lots of drama. We saw that, you know, all of Canada, we were told, was rooting for the Oilers because, you know, the drought and all that stuff, Canada's team. That wasn't true in Calgary.
No, don't say that.
I was going to say, there's no way.
It was exactly the opposite in Calgary.
The only town rooting for the Panthers had to be Calgary. Right?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, you know, I think it was a very difficult time for hockey fans in Calgary because I think everybody in Canada would love to see the Cup come back. It's been 31 years now. I mean, 93 was the last time a Canadian team won it. That was Montreal. So, but I think Flames fans were thinking to themselves, I'd love to see the Cup back across the border, but not at Edmonton. That was a great series, by the way. Talk about that's one of the best series I've seen in a while in the NHL. It was outstanding.
More to come with the new voice of the Blackhawks, Rick Ball. But first, we want to tell you about our friends at Coors Light. And between work and social media, and strong opinions on Twitter about Blackhawks signings or guys they didn't sign or draft. It's no wonder we're more worked up than ever. Coors Light celebrates rising above and choosing a chill mindset. Why not turn your rained-out barbecue into a karaoke house party? Not really my thing, but it might be for you. Or after a tough loss, settle scores with an ice-cold peace offering. Make the choice to choose chill. Reach for a Coors Light. It's mountain cold refreshment. You know that by now. We love it when those mountains turn blue. It's as cold as the Rockies. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smoother finish. When you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshment, crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Hockey. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
And some may say, what's the most valuable thing in sports? And having a superstar like Connor Bedard is definitely very valuable. What's the second most valuable thing? Well, that's time. And managing and worrying about body odor used to take up a lot of my time. I was paranoid about smelling, especially around midday this time, but I think I'm all right now. Everything all right? Yeah, we're good? Okay.
We're good, yeah. Well,
that's because I switched to Mando whole body deodorant, and I freed up so much time. And the best part is it's effective and long-lasting. Mando doesn't cover up odor after the fact with heavy fragrances like certain other deodorants. It stops odor at the source by blocking the bacteria on your skin and eating your sweat. Wow. Which is the actual cause of body odor. What does that mean? It means Mando is clinically proven to control odor up to 72 hours. So give yourself the precious gift of time and get yourself some Mando whole body deodorant. New customers get $5 off Mando's best-selling starter pack with the code CHGO at shopmando.com. The starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash or deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, we have the discount code to help you get hooked on our new favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use that code CHGO at shopmando.com.
Rick, we have a couple questions and comments from the audience. Lebowski5 says, can you ask Rick what his hockey nickname is? We've got Panger and...
Well, people call me Baller, which is, I guess it's a hockey nickname.
It fits.
Kind of. Yeah. Should play basketball, maybe be doing basketball. But I've said this before, pretty much everything I've learned about life, I learned from Seinfeld. And George Costanza once tried to give himself a nickname, and it didn't go well.
Yeah, so you can't do that.
T-Bone. You can't assign T-Bone. You want a T-Bone, and you got Coco.
You're Coco, yeah.
That's right. So people can call me whatever they want, but that seems to be the one.
$2 super chat from our buddy Windy City Hockey, who says, welcome to the Windy City, Rick.
Thank you.
There you go. You will meet Windy City Hockey, I guarantee you.
Yes.
He's got a knack for finding Hawks personnel. Not in a creepy way either. And a comment from Michael who says, according to Elliot Friedman, Rick and Panger are both big wine guys.
Yeah, I like I'm not an expert. Like people, I actually got interviewed one time by a guy who had a wine connoisseur magazine. I go, please don't. I'm not a connoisseur, but I do like my red wine, and I know what I like. So that's I can't wait to get out on the road. I had a similar partner with Kelly Rudy in Calgary who loves his red wine. So a little, and this is one of the reasons I love Chicago. Great steakhouses, and nothing goes better with a good ribeye than a nice glass.
Well, that's what we got to ask you is what have you discovered in Chicago food-wise?
I want to know.
Favorites?
Lebowski asked what his favorite varietal is. I like a nice Montepulciano, but that's because I'm Italian. I like saying Montepulciano.
Yeah. I'm simple. I like old California cabs. Yeah. Although we did go to we were in France a few years ago and went to Bordeaux as part of the trip up to Pauillac and had some great wine up there. But I'm not an expert on French wines at all. Okay. So yeah,
this is a white. That's me.
House white, house red. Sure, yeah,
sure. It sounds good.
As long as the bottle has a handle on it, like a little thing to put your finger through, that's for me.
It comes in bottles. I'm just used to the bottles.
And a screw-up cap. Yeah, there you go.
When did they start putting it in bottles?
And we got another question from a Dying Breed Collector. Says, Rick, you seem awesome, but have to ask thin crust or deep dish, and we will be judging you based on your answer.
I will tell you this story because my wife this is her first. So I was mentioning to the guys off the air this. She had never been to Chicago before, and I've been here a lot and told her it's my favorite city. So this is her first chance. She's out here with me right now and to see the city. She was really excited about it. when the prospect was coming together, and now that she's here, she's absolutely stoked. She loves this place. So the first night we were here, our flight was delayed. We got on a bit late. We had to get some food. We ordered pizza, and we ordered deep dish, and it was outstanding. I can't remember the pizzeria that we ordered it from, but we both had one slice, and the other 5 pounds has been sitting on the floor for the last 4 days in the hotel room. So it's extremely filling, even though it's good. So I will say, as a soon-to-be citizen of the beautiful city of Chicago, I guess it's mandatory to like deep dish, right? Is that
No, see, that's
Are you
the
allowed to like
misnomer.
thin crust?
The tavern style is the go-to, and that's what I would say. Of the 100 times I order pizza, 90 of it is thin crust tavern style.
Okay, then I don't feel bad.
No.
I'm more of a thin crust guy.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine. As a lot of people say, some people in this very building will get mad when you say it, but deep dish is for the tourists. Thin crust is for the regulars. Both are good, but thin crust is where you
just
where you
try
go.
Salerno's right there on
Grand.
Grand and Racine.
Yeah.
It's very
That's
close.
encouraging, because if I'm forced to eat, I'm going to have to install a defibrillator right in my house.
No, you don't.
Not at all.
Thin-
No.
we'll,
we're good.
Thin to
We're
win.
crust,
when you
okay.
you can handle the steaks with Panger, but when you're ready for pizza or a good Italian beef, you give us a call. We're
I'm
your
reaching out.
guys.
I might do it tonight.
All right,
There you go.
we can give you
And-
20 places.
And what's your steakhouse?
Well, so I've been coming here for years. Gibson's was always the place to go, but is it Rosebuds? We've been there a bunch of times as
Rosebud,
well.
yep.
And the last couple of times I was here, Chicago Cup, we were there on Saturday. Outstanding, in a beautiful setting right on the river. So,
That'll become a go-to, I think, for you.
yeah, I've been there a couple times now, and it's fantastic.
That seems to be the one that is lately kind of grown and grown and grown. I think it's like where a lot of the athletes go, the celebrities like Rick go there. You know, it's a place to see to the who's who in Chicago. Is
Do they
Chicago
have your
Cup.
autograph picture on the wall yet?
No, I don't. I was just a guy, and I was more than happy to be that. So it's a beautiful place.
How many restaurants do have a picture of you autographed on the wall? That seems like a thing you might want to do.
Yeah, it's normally don't accept checks from this guy.
Yeah.
That's usually why it's up there. But no, it's listen, I love steak, and this is maybe the best city
You're
on the continent to like that.
you're in a really good spot
Yeah.
for it. And all I mean, you know, looking at the two of us, we have discovered the food around here very, very from a young age.
I'll tell you what, this neighborhood that you're in with the studio, I didn't even know this existed. It's like somebody told me it's only been the last 10 years or so that West Loop.
About right. Yeah.
It's spectacular, and the number of great restaurants around here. Wow.
This,
Eye opener.
if you were taking road trips here 15, 20 years ago,
You wouldn't have come here.
you probably locked the car doors and drove right through the red lights.
Yeah, this was like it was like
But,
the meat packing industry.
Yeah. But in the last 10 to 15 years, a lot of money and a lot of the warehouses have been turned into lofts and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is a great
I think
neighborhood.
we're
Beautiful.
I think we're probably in one of those, to be honest with you.
Yeah. But we mentioned earlier, Darren Pang, mutual friend. We've had him on the show. My goal in whatever happens in my time in the game of hockey, my goal is to be 10% as popular as Darren Pang is in the world of hockey, because I don't know I've done something right. That guy just lights up a room every time he comes in. But I'll admit, I called him this morning and asked for a little inside information because I know you guys are tight. And just except for bragging that you seem to only get stuck with goalies as your analyst.
Yeah.
He mentioned that you play rugby, and I find that interesting.
Well, not anymore. Like that was a while ago. I think at this age I've given it. I always go because it's funny because I had when I went to Calgary, I met some guys who are on a men's rugby team and asked me to come on and play. I go, I can still run on a straight line, but as long as you don't ever expect me to change directions, I think I'll be okay.
I feel that.
But yeah, I grew up playing rugby. I loved it. That was one of my sports. So it's a great sport. It combines sort of a bit of everything that I like. The physicality of a sport like hockey or football, and yet the flow of hockey or soccer. I kind of fell into it. We didn't have high school football where I grew up in Kelowna. It's actually back now, oddly, as a quick aside. But when I was there, you played community football, and then in high school you played rugby. So that's how I got into it, and it was just I loved it. So yeah, I was talking to somebody about this just the other day about might have been Luke Richardson. We were talking about the reviews and how you can make the process faster. When something goes to review, and watching the World Cup of Rugby whenever it was last year. They have, when a play goes to review, they have the review booth mic'd up in one corner and the referee mic'd up in the other, and you can hear them talking to each other as they talk through the review. I don't think the NHL would ever do it, but that'd be fantastic because then at least when they make the call, you can understand the logic behind why they're doing it, right? So
Transparency.
Little transparency
100%.
isn't bad.
Good thing. Well, you talked about your start in rugby. How did you get your start in broadcasting? What was, your first job in hockey, and how did you get there?
So I kind of got nudged onto the path when I was in high school. The custodian at my school was an old junior hockey coach and just happened to be the color analyst on the local junior hockey broadcasts. And I played all the sports, but I knew I was never going to be good enough to go anywhere with it. But I kind of had a thought, hey, maybe broadcasting would be fun. So he introduced me to the play-by-play guy and the sports director at the radio station named Brian Cooling, who for whatever reason, as a kid in 11th grade, took a liking to me and would have me phone him reports from various events, or if I played in a basketball tournament, he'd have me call a report in at the end of the day. And it kind of got my foot in the door there. And then I went to broadcast school at a place called BCIT and got a full-time job back at that radio station in Kelowna, BC, right out of school. So I was like 20 when I started full-time. And that kind of got me started. And then it was a few years later that I finally got a chance to call play-by-play. I really wanted to do it. And I finally was at a different station by this time, was able to badger the general manager of the radio station through, I think it was just a campaign of weariness. He just got sick of seeing me and said, okay, we'll do it. And man, am I glad that he finally gave in, because once I started calling games, I knew this is what I want to be doing. And I started doing junior hockey and did that for 7 years, 5 years in the Western League, rode buses all across the frozen tundra. But I wouldn't change that experience for the world. It taught me so much, obviously, about my job, but even the culture of being around the team. You're literally on the bus with the guys. And it was a great experience. And you know, like most things, you can only get better at this job by reps.
Yeah.
Right.
So how do you get reps? You start calling games in a junior league and listen to yourself and critique and try and get better at it. And that's how it got started.
Before that, did you ever do the, in your head play-by-play watching a game? Or I remember when I was a kid and I'd be playing a hockey video game, I would kind of call it. I would always turn into Pat Foley, though, a very, very bad version of Pat Foley.
That's not a bad guy to try and turn into, though.
But there's only one,
I know,
what kind of practice methods did you have before it became official?
Yeah, not real. I don't know that I ever really did that, although I was a huge sports fan. I mean, I watched everything, right? And I had the guys that I liked. So Jim Robson was the Canucks radio guy, who was definitely a hero of mine, and a guy I got to know when I got to Vancouver. He was retired by that point, just a sweet man. And Bob Cole, I think I mentioned earlier, Hockey Night Canada. So those were the two guys I liked the most. But I don't think I really started trying to practice until I was doing it. That's the great thing about doing junior games is you're working in a smaller town and you can be terrible and nobody really cares. They're glad the games are on the air. And then try and get better. And at that point, when I realized how much I loved doing it, it was just a matter like incrementally try and get better. Listen to the games when you get back home. And try and I'm using that phrase too much, or I could have described that more efficiently, and just little by little try and improve. And then it was always about just getting to the next level, right? Like people ask about a big goal, and I go, it was never big goals. It was little ones, steps along the way. And then they kind of added up over time.
Well, that's the way to do it. I know I know the fans are super excited. The excitement level since winning the draft lottery last year has just amped up. And now I know with free agency yesterday and now having this new network and a new broadcast team with you and Panger, the fan base is excited. So I hope,
I am too.
It seems like a very good combination and everyone involved is super happy that, and we just need October to get here now.
Yeah. Let's get going about it.
Especially for us, because we still got to do this 5 days a week throughout the summer. So
open door policy.
Yeah, you want to come in anytime you want to come on. We'll supply the thing.
I'm here.
And beef.
Yeah.
And, we'll
Coors
talk
Light.
some hockey. Hey, we got a fridge full of it.
100%.
I'm stoked as well, everybody. I think it's, I love calling hockey, and the chance to do it with the Hawks for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. If the fans are excited, I'm even tenfold that. I can't wait to get going.
Rick, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Before we let you go, we have a $5 super chat from our friend Region Rev. And she says, I grew up listening to sports on the transistor radio. I'm excited for actual hockey talk. Yeah, so are we. It's really nice to have some hockey to talk about with the free agency and with Rick here. It's great. The season seems far away, but it'll be here before we know it. So, Rick, thanks for taking some time out.
It's my pleasure. Anytime.
All right. Go grab a steak.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. That is new Blackhawks play-by-play man, Rick Ball. We appreciate him being here. And we want to tell you, fellas, that do you want your grooming routine to be a one-and-done deal? Well, these days, The days of using the same trimmer for your face and other parts are over thanks to our friends at Manscaped. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep your hairs trimmed from 12 to 6. Introducing the Beard and Balls Bundle, featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger. Not the Brian Hedger, the Beard Hedger.
That would take too long.
A trimmer for the moneymaker and another for the boys downstairs. Get $20 off and free shipping with the code HAWKS20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code HAWKS20 at manscaped.com for the premium grooming experience. Trust Manscaped, featuring a titanium-coated stainless steel T-blade and 20 length options. You can achieve any style you want with just a twist of the zoom wheel. And just like the lawnmower, the Beard Hedger is also waterproof, so you can handle your beard grooming right in the sink or shower without worrying about water damage. With up to 60 minutes of runtime and an LED charge indicator, you'll never be caught mid-trim with a dead battery. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code HAWKS20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code HAWKS20 at manscaped.com. No more juggling multiple tools or dealing with subpar results. Just efficient, effective grooming whenever you need it.
Yes, that's a weird ad to do with a guy whose name we just had here. Steve, anyway, we're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't a search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect to the candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to recent Indeed surveys. So listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
All right.
Oh, indeed.
Indeed.
Indubitably.
You all right over there? You need some more
Yeah,
water?
I know. I
You
just
good?
got the wrong pipe situation. And then when I sneeze, I always sneeze twice. So you should know that law.
Good to know. I would duly
Next time I
noted.
sneeze once, just assume another one's coming.
Information he should have known 2.5 years ago.
Yeah,
It's like a James Bond movie. James Bond always sneezed twice. That's me. All right, we've got some stuff to talk about.
Do we?
I think
What?
we do.
What's
I mean,
It's July. I thought there was no
I know.
stuff.
The
Hockey
schedule was
season.
out.
Schedule is out.
We'll talk about that. But we also, since we've left, 2 more free agent signings for the Blackhawks. First, basically as soon as we got off the air, Joey Anderson re-signed for a 1-year deal, $800,000. And then last night, TJ Brodie signs a contract with the Hawks.
TJ
Brodie. What's up, Brodie? 2 years with a $3.75 million cap hit. We've got our buddy Jay Fresh with the info on TJ Brodie on the screen, saying TJ Brodie, signed by Chicago, as a veteran defensive defenseman who went from being an elite defender with puck-moving skill to a turnover-prone turnstile basically overnight. This should be a low-stakes chance to find his footing again with the Blackhawks. Look, I always am, when a guy leaves Toronto, I always sort of expect a bit of a bump. I also think TJ Brodie is going to be a bottom pair guy here. He'll probably not have to play in as many important situations with Seth Jones here and with Alex Vlasic developing into who he is, and Alec Martinez, if he's healthy, will be playing in penalty kill roles. I don't look. TJ Brodie is a bottom pair guy at this point in his career.
He's a cheaper version of Nikita Zaitsev.
Yeah.
Well, he'll play 55, 60 games. If he's playing all 82 games, I'd be shocked.
It's a guy who's picked up some points in his career, though. Career high 45 points in 2015-16 with Calgary. Now, that's almost a decade ago, of course.
I mean, he
but
spent a lot of time playing with Mark Giordano, former Norris Trophy winner, so there was some good chemistry there. But Alec Martinez and TJ Brodie are not world beaters. They're not what – I mean, if you would have signed these two guys back in 2015, you'd be like, holy smokes.
yeah.
We just got 2 all-star caliber defensemen. Well, they're not at that level anymore. Far from it. But both of these guys are huge upgrades over Jared Tenorti and Jacob Megna.
Yes.
And they're also veterans that know what's going on here and know that, hey, there's a lot of young defenders coming that are trying to take our job. So if they do one day, we kind of know it's here. Like, TJ Brodie and Alex Martinez are going to give their value off the ice is more than what they're going to produce on the ice.
Yeah.
Letting these guys know, your Ethan Del Mastros and Kevin Korchinski's and all these young guys, Kaiser, we know all of them. They're going to be here to help them be pros, to do the little things that matter. Alec Martinez is a 3-time Stanley Cup winner. You can't tell me coming from that kind of winning culture for the last 12 years of his career is not going to rub off on an Alex Vlasic. You know, those are the important things. And when you look at this roster as a whole now, you know, some people are saying, oh, they're blocking out the young players. That's not true because we don't know which young players are ready, if any of them. Yeah, Frank Nazar played 3 games last year. That doesn't mean he's ready to go.
Yeah.
So if he's not and has to go play in Rockford for half a season, a full season, a month, you have depth.
Yeah.
There's going to be injuries on this team. A team that has Taylor Hall, Andreas Athanasiou, and Connor Murphy, and Alec Martinez, for that matter. He's had issues. You know you can't count on these guys for a full season. Now you have depth. You have depth that we thought we had last year, but we quickly learned didn't. So now you're not running to the scrap heap and picking up Rem Pitlick or Zach Sanford as an emergency guy to come play today.
Or Jacob Megna.
Right. You have a Craig Smith who could play a role, Pat Maroon. They know they're not going to be in the lineup all 82 games, and they're probably fine with it. They're at the tail ends of their career. They're ready to come here and be veteran leaders. Hey, and if I got to sit because Colton Dock is ready to become an NHL player, I think they're fine with it. That was probably the agreement. Come here, you know, help the young guys come above. And if one of our youngsters has taken your spot, we'll do our best to get you on a contender at the trade deadline. Because you know what kind of guys people want for the playoffs every year? A guy like Craig Smith and a guy like Pat Maroon.
Yeah,
They'd be easy to move those if they're no longer playing here. So, you know, for almost the entire season, a lot of the fan base said we have to have more NHL players on this team.
Yep.
Now that we do, some people are like, well, we have too many now. And these are the same people that for the last 10, 12 years, myself included, have complained that the Blackhawks don't know how to develop right.
They rush guys. They get them up here too quick.
Right. Well,
like Jokiharju, like Boquist, like Doc.
Yeah, now you want Frank Nazar here now, even though we don't know. And you want Oliver Moore here now. No, you can't complain that we don't develop, the team doesn't develop properly, and then scream that you want 19, 20-year-olds in the lineup now. Getting these guys here, all these veterans they signed yesterday, will help with that development process. You can now take your time. If Frank Nazar isn't ready in October, you have NHL caliber players to hold his spot until he is.
Yeah, I actually spoke with a source yesterday in the team and just kind of was asking about the idea of like what's going to happen with these kids. You know, now all of a sudden there's not a lot of spots open, and they said they will be in Rockford unless they are unreal to start training camp. So unless a young player absolutely comes and takes a job by the freshly shorn scrotes by Manscaped, they're going to have to earn it. And look, the other thing too is like,
and that's a good thing.
Competition and having to win a spot is a good thing. And I'm going to be honest, I don't love the Brodie signing. I think that either Del Mastro or Kaiser has earned a starting job at the NHL level this year. I also don't love the second year on the TJ Brodie thing. But again, if it gives those guys 15, 20 games to prove it in Rockford, get their wheels under them, figure it out, I'm cool with it. Like you said, there's nothing wrong with over-baking a prospect. Hell, we all thought Lucas Reichel was over-baked. And they're like, oh my God, they can't keep him down there any longer. Possibly starts last year with the team and just basically sucks until he's sent down mid-season, comes back, figures it out a little bit. These guys take time, especially when we're talking about defensemen. I say this all the time. We, as Hawks fans and observers, are incredibly spoiled with the rate at which prospects have developed in the past. Kane, Taves, Panarin, DeBrincat, Saad. These guys jump into the NHL right away and are good right away. That's not normal.
No.
That's not the expectation. Teuvo Teravainen is a more typical indication of what happens with the prospect. Henry Jokiharju, who got traded from here because he was called up right away, asked to play right away, took years to kind of find his game in Buffalo, and who knows if he'll even really fully realize what he could have been had he had AHL time to develop. Look at Kirby Dach, who was rushed into the NHL. Kevin Korchinski, it wouldn't shock me if Korchinski gets a good chunk of games in Rockford next year. Last year, it wasn't an option. We saw him be, for the most part, fine, but we never really got to see Kevin Korchinski flash or show anything great because he was so desperately just trying to hang in there and hang on. D partner didn't help either with Jacob Magna most of the year, but all these guys can use a little bit of seasoning in Rockford, and if it becomes a situation where you simply can't keep Kaiser or Del Mastro or Allen or Nazar or whoever it might be out of the NHL any longer, then fine. You call them up, and you can healthy scratch Craig Smith. You can healthy scratch Pat Maroon. These guys will have value at the trade deadline. There's no need to rush this thing. And what the overall philosophy of bringing in Teravainen, Bertuzzi, and Brossoit are to make this team more competitive, to insulate Connor Bedard so he's not the only threat out there on the ice, so the rest of the young players are playing games that matter, that are meaningful. They're actually in the hunt for a wild card spot for a good percentage of the year. That's the idea, and then let your young kids in Rockford over-marinade.
Yeah.
And Lebowski fight with a great point, Gustav Forsling.
Right. I mean,
it took him 3 teams to figure it out.
Four teams.
Yeah.
Panthers are his 4th team. And having competition in training camp for these young players. Look how well, like last year we went into it and we pretty much all knew Lukas Reichel was being handed the second center spot. It was his. Look how well that turned out.
Yeah.
So now people assume Frank Nazar is your number 2 center starting opening night. I don't know if that's necessarily true. If he earns it, awesome. It's his. But let him have some competition. Let him earn it. It's a good thing. Push these kids. If they're not ready, they don't have to be here. That's why you go out and sign 6, 7 veterans like you did yesterday. It gives time for the youngsters to develop properly and get here when they're ready.
Yeah.
And it also ensures that if there's another month like January last year where everybody gets hurt, you have guys within your system that can step in right away. You can then maybe bring in a couple guys from Rockford, or that's when a Cole Gutman or a Zach Sanford or Brent Sini comes up for a couple of games. Veteran guys that you could plug in for a minute, 3 or 4 games and not worry about, getting completely blown out. So it's hockey rebuilds take years and years and years. We're only in year 2. This will be year 2 of the Connor Bedard era. It's still going to take time. All of these top prospects are 18, 19, 20 years old. Let them take their time. It's obvious what Kyle Davidson's vision is for when this team is going to be competitive again. Just look at how all the contracts of the vets line up. Outside of Pertuzzi, who got 4, and Teuvo, who got 3. He knows when, this is, what his vision is of when this team's going to be good again. So just keep that in mind. It's okay if Frank Nazar spends time in Rockford if he's not ready to be in the NHL. If he comes into the preseason and scores 8 goals in his 4 games and just dominating, and then they send him down, then you can maybe be like, oh, but he deserves to be here. As long as they're not holding him back, it's fine. But he'll be here when he's ready. And if that's opening night, it's opening night.
It's putting Frank Nazar in a bad position to say, you've played 3 NHL games.
Right.
You are our opening night second line center. That is not doing well by his development.
No.
And if he proves, like I said, you simply cannot keep him out of the lineup, then fine. You figure it out. But to put that on him to start the season is a little bit much. We have a little bit of breaking news as it pertains to the Blackhawks, at least Blackhawks adjacent. Colin Blackwell has signed a 1-year, $775,000 contract with the Dallas Stars.
All right.
And our pal McKenzie Whistle also signs a deal with the Florida Panthers I think it's a 2-year deal. My tweet went away here. McKenzie Whistle signs a deal.
1 year, 2-way deal.
A 2-way deal with the Florida Panthers. So good for him.
Enjoy
after all he's been through.
Enjoy possible playoff games, both of those guys.
Yeah.
Something they couldn't get here.
1 year, 2-way contract for McKenzie Whistle. So
good for him.
There you go. He goes from red to red. And breaking news on CHGO is sponsored by our friends at Indeed. Listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
All right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I know it's okay. So I know where Hawks fans are coming from, and I've had to kind of talk myself into this a little bit too, because you kind of get excited about, okay, now we've got kids ready to come up and really improve on the NHL roster, and we're going to be excited to see these young guys play. And now that doesn't seem to be the plan, but it's the right plan. The right plan is to let these young guys in Rockford hang out and develop while the NHL team is more competitive. It's not Connor Bedard and a bunch of bums.
Let them tell you when they're ready for the NHL, not the other way around.
Yes, exactly.
And it's going to be a much better team, even with, if Frank Nazar isn't on the team to start the season, and say they decide, there seems to be a popular thought that Kevin Korchinski is going to start the year in Rockford. I don't think so, but stranger things have happened. If he needs to be there, I'm sure they'll use it. But even if these guys aren't on the roster on night one, that doesn't mean this season is thrown to the trash. This team is going to be better. This team is going to, a lot of those games, the way they found to lose last year, they'll find a way to win. Not predicting playoffs, but it's not going to be a 52-point season. It's going to be a big improvement in the points. It's going to be a big improvement in the compete level and the talent level.
Well, even if you're only adding Teravainen and Bertuzzi, a healthy Taylor Hall, and a healthy Athanasiou, that's a significantly better team.
Right.
Now you're adding, instead of Taylor Radish and instead of McKenzie Whistle, it's Pat Maroon and Craig Smith.
We're forgetting about Mikheyev.
Mikheyev's here too. You've got Ryan Donato playing in a role that suits him better. Ryan Donato was your top line winger with Connor Bedard last year.
Scored the first goal
to open the season. Ryan Donato, who might be a healthy scratch most nights. Your top six is Teravainen, Bedard, Bertuzzi, Dickinson, Kurashev, Reichel, Hall. Oh yeah, and Hall, Athanasiou. I mean, there's 9 of your top.
You're going to be able to put Nick Felino on the fourth line where he belongs and is most effective.
Yes, I think Nick
Felino did a fantastic job having to try and play in a top six, but Nick Felino should not be in your top six at this point of his career.
Yeah.
I bet you when we have him here, he'll agree with me on that. You'll be able to put guys in the positions where they can succeed better and not have to play above their skill set on a nightly basis.
Got a super chat from KR Shy Sports. Says, I have a strong feeling that at least one of next year's firsts will be traded for that splash player, which makes me excited for the plan or future. I'm not. It could be. I feel like if that would have happened, it probably would have happened already. Like maybe before the draft, or it would have been used to get the rights to somebody.
I think he's thinking it's going to be used before in next year's offseason.
Oh,
to
sure.
Get it.
Yeah.
Where right before the draft next year, instead of Utah making that big splashy trade for a Sergachev, it's the Hawks getting that kind of player. I mean, you've got so many picks. That's part of the reason for draft capital, is not only try and get as many talented prospects in your system, but when you start to you're going to need currency at some time to get what you need. And yeah, absolutely, that could be a currency. I mean, Kyle Davidson has proven that he is really good at acquiring first-round draft picks.
And he's aggressive. He's shown his aggression.
Exactly. So I would not be surprised. He's already tried to trade next year's first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
He tried to move back up to number 4 to get Demidov, and it just didn't work out. So I think if there's anything Kyle Davidson has proven over the last almost 3 years, is he is aggressive, and he will do what he can to get what he does. He's shown it in free agency this year. I think some people
8 signings.
Some people were worried about, well, sure, he looks like he's good at drafting and he can make trades, but can he get free agents? I think he answered that. Yes, he didn't go and get the big splash. He didn't get a Steven Stamkos or Reinhart, but it wasn't
or Gensel.
But it wasn't the time for any of that.
Right.
He wasn't going after those guys. But he definitely knows how to sell this team. You know, a guy like Pat Maroon has played on multi-Stanley Cup championship teams. And yes, it's the tail end of his career. But, you know, I'm sure there were a lot of contenders that would have liked him, but he got him to come here. So he's showing that he can handle it all. The drafting, so far, so good. Looks good. The trades, he's made some pretty darn good trades. Look at the Jason Dickinson trade. You know, his first trade ever as GM was Alex Nylander for Sam Lafferty. That turned out pretty good. So he seems to be a pretty good talent evaluator. And we've also look at the Alex Vlasic. He kind of gets the whole salary cap game too.
Yep.
So
and Reichel.
And you can argue with you know, the Tavo deal. I think he got him for under what he could have got some other teams that cap hit. I mean, I think, you know, so he might have been able to get 6
you would think.
Plus, you would think.
Yeah.
So he seems to have all the facets of being an NHL GM. I don't want to say figured out, but at least he seems.
Well, we got to check boxes as we go along.
Right.
So now,
there's
like you said,
there's
before
fewer
it was,
fears
can
going
he
forward.
will the rebuild? Can he rebuild and get the top players? Yes. Can he make decent trades? Yes. Now, can he lure free agents? Check that box. Yes. The next thing to check is, can he lure a massive, major free agent? Got to check that box. And how is he at developing the guys he's drafted? That remains to be seen because he's only been on a job for a few years.
Right.
But all indications so far are pretty good for the guys he picked.
Yeah, the development is going to be the most important thing of all of
course.
Because if all these first-round picks never make it to the NHL, well, then we have a big problem because it is crystal clear that he wants to win a Stanley Cup with the guys he drafts.
Of course.
It's crystal clear that he wants to, like, we look at the Panthers this year, and they had 3 guys on that team that were drafted by the Panthers.
Right.
That is so rare. So rare. It's not the way to do it.
Yeah.
It worked, but that's not going to happen that often. But Kyle Davidson is like, I want to start winning again with Frank Nazar and Oliver Moore and, you know, Levshunov and Del Mastro, all my guys. Del Mastro was a heel, should not be named Pitt, but you know what I mean.
No, but it's funny. Like, it's almost like people are forgetting that they just drafted Levshunov. It's like, you just got the number 2 pick a couple days ago, and so much has happened since then. It's like, oh yeah, that. Oh yeah,
3
he's going to be
picks.
here maybe as soon as this year.
3 first-round picks.
Well, and that's the other thing is that if you look at the draft analysis, it's been coming out since, you know, the second day wrapped up. Most people are raving about the Hawks draft, and it's not just Levshunov. People really love Sasha Boisvert. People love that pick.
They're a big fan of the Van Acker pick.
The Van Acker one too. Like,
there was a tweet out today about, I forget which scout it was, but they said if he wasn't hurt, he suffered I think it was a torn labrum.
I think that's right. Yeah.
If he wasn't hurt, he probably would have been a top 10 to top 15 pick, and you got him at 27 by trading back into the first round. So
yeah,
it's exciting time, and I understand getting impatient. I get it. Yeah. I 100% get it.
I'm impatient too.
I want to start covering more winning hockey games as quickly as possible. You just if you want it done right, you just have to let all these things come together in its own due time. If you want it done right, if you want to screw it up and you want to be like Detroit, okay, we can do that.
Yeah. Well, and here's the difference with Detroit, and I saw someone in the chat just mention Detroit. Someone is detracting what the Hawks are doing and comparing them to Detroit. The difference is Detroit has no one like Connor Bedard. They don't have that superstar level
and
player.
They were spending big money to try and, like, they signed Alex DeBrincat to how many years?
Yeah, DeBrincat is signed for 3 more years. It's 7.875.
So, like, they brought in a bunch of guys because they wanted to win. Now, whereas the Hawks are bringing in these guys because they know they have talented young guys coming behind them.
Yeah.
I don't think Detroit had that luxury or that confident, even though when you listen that people are, they still think Steve Yzerman is the greatest GM ever, but this Yzer plan is taking a lot longer than a lot of people expected.
Have you taken a look at Detroit's goalie situation?
It's not good.
Ville Husso, they signed Cam Talbot, Alex Lyon, and Jack Campbell. 4 guys who are like, well, maybe they can turn it around and be good again.
That would be a really good AHL goalie
duo. Those are Detroit's 4 goalies.
Right.
How about the Wallman trade? I think the honeymoon might be over for Steve Yzerman.
I don't know. I mean,
I don't like.
I think it is a lot around the league, but I don't know if in Detroit you still have a lot of fans that have Yzerman up on the podium. I saw
they do have Sebastian Cossa in their system, who is a high draft pick. So in fairness,
he struggled last year.
Quick reminder.
Detroit sucks!
Oh, thank you.
I mean, if they believed that Sebastian Cossa was going to be a thing this year, they wouldn't have gone out and signed 3 goalies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he is this year, but they got him coming down the pipeline. So, look, I think it's very. if I came into yesterday's show at 10:30 in the morning, a half hour before free agency starts, and says the Hawks are going to sign 7 free agents, and the only one that anyone's really going to question is the 8th, or 8 free agents, and the only one anyone's going to question is the 8th free agent. That's pretty good. That's 7 wins and 1 meh with TJ Brodie. I mean, again, none of these guys are keeping.
Right. Had Kyle Davidson signed just Pat Maroon and TJ Brodie and said, "Oh, all right, we're better," then you get the pitchforks and torches out.
Yeah.
But those are like your 5th and 6th best signings,
right?
When acquisitions.
Well, when you look at the forwards who are available, you're not going to get Reinhart. Reinhart signed for cheaper than he could have to stay in Florida.
Great deal for Florida. That was an amazing piece of general
really good
managing
GM.
right there.
That's how you're supposed to be a GM. Bill Zito is fantastic. Does a great job. You look at Jake Gensel, who Tampa traded for his rights, got a deal done. Of course, he's going to play in Tampa. He got the term he wanted. He got everything he wanted. Stamkos, the Hawks are probably not in position to give him 4 years, like he got in Nashville. Fine. And then Chris Tanev was also in that sort of A tier of free agents because he's such a great defender. What, do you get 6 years in Toronto?
Yeah, that's
the Hawks aren't going to give him 6 years.
That's
so then you look
probably 3 too many.
Then you look at the next tier of free agents, and it is Teravainen, it is Bertuzzi, and the Hawks get both those guys to sign here. That's good. Bertuzzi and Tavo aren't like Plan B kind of guys. They fit perfectly what the Hawks are trying to do right now. And I mentioned it yesterday too. When you get Nazar and you get more in the NHL, and they're starting to elevate, right, and they're starting to go from middle 6 to top 6. That's when Bertuzzi and Teravainen will start moving down and still become effective third-line guys. Like, if you look at the years that Davidson's given, you look at the timeline that he's working on, it all makes perfect sense to how things are going to align when this team's ready to compete again.
Right. And if you look at Maple Leaf Twitter, which you should only do in very small doses for your own sanity, there are a lot of people, take this with a grain of salt, that are very pissed at the Maple Leafs for not re-signing Todd Bertuzzi. Tyler. God, I'm going to do that a million times.
Todd would be tough.
I know. Tyler Bertuzzi. I did that. How many times did I call Max Domi Ty? Like,
I know,
a million.
just,
because my brain is
yelled
still
it angrily so many times.
My brain is stuck in the 90s. It always will be. Like, there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people there that said I would have rather had Bertuzzi than Domi. To me, I mean, I don't know. We'll find out.
My concern with the roster as it constructed is there's not a lot of true centers on it.
No,
we don't know about Bedard yet. Dickinson is a center,
right?
Craig Smith plays center, but he's kind of a center wing. Kurashev, Athanasiou are center wings. There's no like.
I would call them wing centers.
Yeah,
they're wings
right.
first centers.
Even like Nazar, we're not sure about.
Yeah, there's not a lot down the middle. I know didn't Tavo play a little center?
Yeah, but
not great.
He played center in Chicago, but I don't think he did it at all in Carolina.
Yeah, that's definitely a weakness. probably their biggest weakness is down the middle, but you address that in this year's draft. With your 2 first-round picks are both big, 2 of your 3 first-round picks are big centers.
Yeah, I'm trying to see, looking at for his face-off stats. So last year, he won 66 and lost 74, so very few face-offs taken. His biggest face-off year was actually his first year in Carolina. He did play a lot of center, 193 won, 220 lost.
So he's a guy you can put out there.
You can put him there if you need to.
If you have to.
If you have to.
But we'll see how that cranks out. One thing from yesterday, somebody just brought it up in the chat. Lord Hosa, the Shane Pinto thing turned out to be not a real thing.
Yeah, he did not ask for a trade, apparently. And Ottawa just cleared a bunch of salary. They traded Matthew Joseph to the Blues for futures. And
they traded Chikrin away for...
Yeah, I thought there was another Ottawa... Oh, no, the Blues made... Oh, the Blues got Radek Foxa today, too. So I think they're clearing cap space, too.
The Blues are going to be so mid. So mid.
Mid AF, as the kids say.
Like them and the...
just like their pizza.
Them and the... just like everything.
Not even that good.
Like the Blues and the Preds are like swapping places.
Yeah. The Preds are going to be...
Preds are going to be an interesting team this year.
Yeah, I need to look at, like, once all the
coach.
smoke clears, like, who's lost what and who's gained what. I mean, you could look at the Preds maybe finishing second in this division. Like, as the Dallas Stars get older, as another year of Jamie Benn, another year of Tyler Seguin, like, those guys are going to drop off significantly at some point.
They do, but they still have a lot of young talent there. I mean, you have Bryce Johnson, you have Stakehoven, you have Robertson.
But there might be a little gap in that for a year before those guys fully realize. Nashville's got a chance. I don't think they're going to win the division.
Some people thought that was going to be Dallas this year, but look where they were. Yeah, it's still the Avalanche's division to lose.
Yeah.
They have the most talent. They have some issues, though. They're right up against the cap. You don't know what Landeskog is going to do, if he's going to play, and that would be, what?
That would be 3 years.
2 seasons. Right? He hasn't played, so who knows what you're going to get, even if he does. You don't know what's going on with the Nick Scoutian thing. You don't. But it's still, when you have Nathan McKinnon and Kel McCarr on your team,
you'll be okay.
They got Casey Middlestat locked up there. They're going to be all right. So, but Nashville's going to be. I can't believe I'm going to say this. Nashville might be a fun team to watch.
I agree with that. They are going to be 100%. All right, we got some super chats to knock out before we go. First, Dougie P41 says, "Is it me or does Rick Ball sound like a young Sean Connery?"
And look like him too.
A little bit.
I see the look. Yeah.
Yeah. Chris P says, "What's the issue with the Brodie signing? Love it. He had a horrible year in Toronto last year. Really, really struggled." Here's a note on him that I found. Brodie's on-ice goal differential at 5-on-5 was -15. And his expected goals share was -13.74% relative to his teammates. So not a good year for him last year. But again, a bounce back is certainly in the cards. Don't love the second year of that deal. And then Thomas says, "It's nice to see all the additions we made without giving up anything of serious value. Kudos to Kyle Davidson." That's the other thing. You're getting good players without giving up assets.
And there's $18 million of cap space coming off the books after this season. Like, it's not preventing you from doing anything in the future, any of these moves. Maybe we can get Rick Ball to add a suck it to wreck to his goal call. Like, every time Connor Bedard shoots, he scores. Suck it, Trebek.
I like that. I'm sure he'd be down with that.
Yeah.
I think the Hawks would love that. 100%. All right, we're going to wrap things up. We're back tomorrow. Mark Eaton and Anders Sorensen are going to speak. Yep. Greg will be there covering that. I'm going to be in therapy because I freaking need it.
Somebody asked earlier when Kyle Davis is speaking. He'll speak Friday. So we'll have Kyle Davidson video on Friday for you.
100%. All right, we're back tomorrow, 2:30. Thanks for being here.
On the dot.
Hit that like button on the way out. We appreciate you. And notice, by the way, a big jump in likes, a big jump in views over the last week or so. Keep it going. We appreciate you being with us. Tell a friend, subscribe, rate, review, like that, smash that like button. We'll be back tomorrow at 2:30 on the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.